We're going to give you every single wide receiver this week for week 3, and we're going to tell you whether you should start them or sit them in your matchup for this week. Do us a huge favor if you enjoy this format, drop a like, make sure you're also subscribed.
So Atlanta and Carolina, I expect to be pretty productive days, I think, for both top wide receivers, top options there. Drake London will have in the B tier this week. I expect him to bounce back from what was a really slow week last week for him. Even with target volume, that was the lowest amount of target volume I've seen for London in a long time. And honestly, it made sense in a matchup where they were just blitzing the crap out of JJ McCarthy all day, and they had complete control in that matchup. They did not need to throw the ball. So that was, I think, kind of a fluky day for London. He'll be fine against Carolina, who has a pretty shaky pass defense. And then, on the flip side there, your number one, Tet McMillan, who's coming off of a very high target volume day where he had 10 targets and 6 receptions for 100 yards. He's had no touchdowns so far in his rookie stint with Carolina, and he still had 11 and 16 points respectively. Once those touchdowns start flowing, he's going to be shooting up rankings, shooting up boards. Like, he's looking like the 8th overall pick in this year's NFL draft. So he's looking really, really solid for Bryce Young's number one option. And then we'll have him in the D tier this week. I think he'll be fine. Again, like, some people will be like, well, Atlanta, they've been, they really shut down Justin Jefferson. They'll be able to do the same thing with Tet. They shut down JJ McCarthy. They didn't shut down Justin Jefferson. Like, they blitzed the crap out of McCarthy, who looked like a deer caught in headlights and very inexperienced. Bryce is going to be throwing the crap out of the ball this week. So when you're looking at the number 2s here, we'll have in the I tier Darnell Mooney. I'll have him listed as a meh. Again, very similar to Drake London. He had the same amount of targets as Drake London against the Vikings, and coming off that shoulder injury. Again, like, I think he'll be fine long term. He's just more of a boom bust guy, and until he shows it, and until you see that volume come back for both of these guys, I would have to rank him as a meh. So Xavier Legette, you're not starting Xavier Legette. He's actually had a good amount of targets in games where Carolina has been down by quite a bit, and he's turned that into like 4 receptions for 8 yards. So you're not starting Xavier Legette.
Weird wide receiver game in this matchup between Green Bay and Cleveland. Let's start on the Green Bay side of the ball. Green Bay, from a Vegas standpoint, is projected to score more points in this game, obviously. But when you're looking at their receiver rotation, you have Jaden Reed out for probably the season with a broken collarbone. He also has a Jones fracture in his foot. We're not going to see him. And you would think, theoretically, that that's going to move the Green Bay wide receivers up our rankings, and there are going to be some must-starts in there. I have none of the Green Bay wide receivers as must-starts this week. None of them. And I have Romeo Doubs as a borderline meh because he had 11 points on 5 targets last week, but it's because he had a touchdown. And with Romeo Doubs, do I actually feel comfortable starting him? No, I absolutely do not. Do I feel comfortable starting Dontavion Wicks? No, I don't. Week 1, 5 points. Week 2, 8 points. I don't want to start that. Do I feel comfortable starting Matthew Golden? Well, ask the guy who took him in the 7th round of the Flock League if I feel very comfortable starting Matthew Golden right now. 2 targets each of his first 2 weeks, 3 and 1 point. No. Matthew Golden is a sit. Wicks is a sit. Romeo Doubs is a borderline. If you're in a deep league and you have nothing else going on, maybe you can flex him. Maybe. I tier for Romeo Doubs. J tier for both Dontavion Wicks and Matthew Golden. Maybe somebody will step up there, but it's probably going to be somebody different every week. And realistically, if you don't have to start any Packers, even though it's a decent matchup against this Cleveland secondary, I'm not starting them. Now, on the other side of the ball for Cleveland, this is a tough matchup for Cleveland, but there is a must start in this game. Of course, it's Jerry Jeudy, who we have in the H tier. I've got Jerry Jeudy and Cedric Tillman both in the same tier in our rankings in the H tier. When you're looking at Tillman, man, I mean, Tillman continues when he's been healthy over the last 2 years. He had 10 points, 7 targets. He had a touchdown, though, that kind of salvaged his day. He only had 2 receptions in the last game against Baltimore. And this is a tough defensive matchup for these guys. It's tough for Jeudy. It's tough for Tillman. However, I do think with Jeudy, like right now, I think you have to start him until you don't. He's had 11 and 9 points so far, 8 targets in each of his first couple of games. The thing with Tillman and Jeudy is, it is more concentrated there, whereas, in Green Bay, you're going to spread the ball out. Tillman and Jeudy are going to get most of the targets here. And so Jeudy, I'm going to say we're comfortable starting. Tillman, I'm going to have as a meh start. Realistically, again, these guys are ranked in the same tier because they should be. I just feel more comfortable with Jerry Jeudy as I know he's the alpha wide receiver there. Tough matchup against a Green Bay defense that has been very good against wide receivers so far this year. And so with this one, start wide receivers at your own risk. The only one I feel comfortable saying, hey, you can start this guy is Jerry Jeudy. The rest of them, it's pretty much up to you if you want to throw him in your lineup, but you have our recommendations.
Then we have Houston and Jacksonville. Nico Collins and BTJ, number one wide receivers in their offenses. Nico Collins kind of salvaged his day with a big play touchdown against Tampa, which honestly, I will say it's been a pretty lackluster start of the season for Nico. But again, there's no one else there. I know Christian Kirk is coming back from his injury, but we're not really worried about anyone else past Nico. Like, Nico's the only viable starting option that you have in that offense because Stroud is constantly under pressure. He can't get the ball to his guys. They have a lot to work on, but Nico, we are going to have in the B tier this week in a matchup against Jacksonville, which I think is going to be solid. I think he's going to have a good week. Christian Kirk, we're going to have ranked in the J tier, going to give him a nod. Coming back healthy, he's going to be the slot receiver there, the exclusive slot receiver. He'll be in the J tier. We are going to have him listed as a sit until he shows any semblance of any production whatsoever, which he didn't really even show last year. Jaden Higgins will be in the K tier. Again, he's just kind of a developmental guy who is not going to do much for the foreseeable future. He is also a set. Brian Thomas Jr., C tier, in a tougher matchup on their end, going up against Stingley and Houston's defense, which looks pretty good this year. He still is getting a ton of target volume, 7 targets week 1, 11 targets week 2, has resulted in 2 single-digit games where week 1 was actually salvaged by like a rushing touchdown. So this is honestly not on BTJ. This is on Lawrence throwing accurate footballs to his number one option.
It's both.
But BTJ, I think, will be fine. You think it's BTJ's fault?
BTJ looks scared to get hit, man. I mean, if you're watching it, he looks like not like he doesn't want to be there. and Lawrence has been bad. It's equally.
I would attribute it more to Lawrence, honestly, because like if you're scared to get hit, it's probably because Lawrence is throwing hospital balls.
I know, but at the same time, it's BTJ's not blameless in this. I agree with everything you said, but when you're watching him, it's like, dude, you should have probably finished that catch, and you probably should have had that. So
ETN does look like the best weapon in that offense right now, which is
mind-boggling.
Absolutely mind-boggling. There's a reason BTJ is in the C tier this week, and it's because he has not been producing. So we'll give him the benefit of the doubt, where you have to start him, but he is eventually going to produce. Travis Hunter, on the other hand, though, I mean, I'll be aggressive here, guys. You can't start Travis Hunter until you feel comfortable that he's going to get consistent enough volume. And if BTJ is not going to produce, how can we say that Travis Hunter is going to produce? Legitimately, I will list Travis Hunter as a meh in the G tier this week for your guys' sake because of his investment and the fact that he is the number 2 there and he's on the field. Like, yeah, he's on the field. But 8 targets and 6 targets the first 2 weeks for 9 and 5 points respectively against Carolina and Cincinnati. How do we expect this to get better against Houston and San Fran and Kansas City over the next 3 weeks? How do we expect that to get any better at all? Travis Hunter, you're not feeling good about flexing him at all. So we'll have him as a meh, and I think honestly it's probably going to get worse over the next few weeks before it gets better. De'Ami Brown behind him. De'Ami Brown outproduced Travis Hunter and BTJ. Mm-hmm. He'll be in the J tier. I still have him listed as a sit because those guys, the guys ahead of him, are just better, more talented.
Yeah, with Hunter, I mean, the most concerning thing I think is the yardage as well. Even on 8 targets, 30.
Yeah, he's yards, not efficient at all with those
like
touches.
On a per route run, like it's not good at all. And so I agree with the sentiment there on the receivers in Jacksonville. Let's go to the Cincinnati-Minnesota game. Look, obviously Cincinnati, first game without Joe Burrow. Jamar Chase in the S tier. We're not going to move Jamar Chase out of the S tier yet. We're not going to move him. I know I'm moving my hands a lot right now. We're not going to move Jamar Chase out of the S tier just yet. We think he's going to be just fine. We think that I'm going to say this because people, man, they just think like, are you guys stupid? We saw with Jamar Chase with Jake Browning, like, I mean, if you're really going to come out here and gloat that you were able to look up a game log from the end of 2023, which was the very first thing we did when we heard about the injury, like, look deeper than that into how Jamar Chase is used as a weapon in this offense compared to how he was used then. Jamar Chase, we're going to give him the benefit of the doubt until we see that he's going to be, I mean, unless they completely abandon how they're utilizing Jamar Chase, he's going to get open in ways that Jake Browning can throw him the ball. Straight up, that's all I have to say about it. T. Higgins also, you have to start him. You have to start T. And I get that he's a shakier start now, but for now, until we kind of figure out what this offense is going to look like, until we figure out what Jake Browning is going to look like, you got to start T. Higgins. You got to start Jamar Chase. It's also a good matchup for them. Minnesota has a great defense, very good run defense, very good at blitzing. Secondary last year was meh. They've obviously upgraded their secondary since last year, but I think you do start both these guys no matter what. On the Minnesota side of the ball, Justin Jefferson we are going to have in the A tier. It's worth mentioning that Justin Jefferson with Carson Wentz, that makes us a little bit more confident that Justin Jefferson can produce at an A-tier level this week. If J.J. McCarthy was playing this week, he probably would have been in the B tier for us. And so we're going to keep him in the A tier because of the Carson Wentz start. This could probably help Justin Jefferson. The matchup against Cincinnati is a fine matchup, of course. The Cincinnati defense is not good. It's just simply not. And with Adam Thielen, we're not going to start Adam Thielen. I don't want to start any other wide receivers in this offense. We got Adam Thielen in the K tier for this week. So again, a matchup where you do have 3 wide receivers in Chase, Higgins, and Jefferson. You're obviously going to start. But beyond those 3 guys, we're not starting Thielen. And I understand that each of these 3 guys this week has lost their quarterback. Regardless, you drafted them. You have to start them. Let's see what it looks like with a different quarterback for each of these 3 guys, and then we'll evaluate next week. I still think they're starts for this week.
Yeah, so Pittsburgh and New England, the only wide receiver that I'm kind of sort of maybe comfortable about starting is DK Metcalf. We'll have him listed as a start in the D tier. He's the number 1 option there. You had a tough matchup against Seattle in week 2 where DK salvaged his day with a touchdown there. But again, behind him, Calvin Austin, who had a good week 1, and a very high-scoring matchup against the Jets, which was unexpected. Came back down to earth against Seattle. He's going to be in the J tier here as a sit. On the New England side of the ball, who's going to produce? Who's going to be the guy there long term? Hey, spoiler alert, I don't know if there is a guy there. There hasn't been a guy there since Julian Edelman. Stephon Diggs has limited snap share. He's on the field half the amount of time that we would like him to be, which is all the time. 7 and 5 targets the first 2 weeks, 11 and 7 points. Boutte with 1 target outproduced and outperformed Stephon Diggs because his 1 catch on the day was a touchdown. And he had 16 points against Vegas, and he's on the field more often than Stephon Diggs is, 82 and 72% snap share. That being said, do you feel good about starting either of these guys? No. And if you were to ask me or ask anyone who you should start, Boutte or Diggs this week, I'd say if you want ceiling, go with Boutte. If you want floor, go with Diggs because Diggs is getting the more consistent target volume. Boutte is getting touchdowns, and he's more efficient with his opportunity. Like on those 6 receptions that he had in week 1, he had over 100 receiving yards. So for both of these guys, Diggs in the H tier, J tier for Boutte just because of the floor. It's a neutral matchup against Pittsburgh, who again has kind of been a shell of what we thought they could be this season, at least the first 2 weeks. And we expect that to pick up. But again, for both of these teams, the only guy I'm comfortable starting this week for sure is DK Metcalf.
All right, let's go to Los Angeles and Philly. Puka Nacua is a must-sit for us this week in a tough matchup. That's a joke, obviously. S tier for Puka Nacua. It is a tough matchup for the Rams, to be honest with you, but I'm not sure that it matters. Like, I'm not sure that Pat Surtain would matter for Puka Nacua right now because he literally just walks on a different plane than everybody. He exists in a different universe than everybody in terms of being an NFL wide receiver.
He is good. He's my favorite wide receiver ever.
He is unbelievably good. Check the jersey signed by Puka right there. Puka's obviously a must start for us this week. Devontae Adams, we're gonna start these guys. In fact, all 4 wide receivers in this game are gonna get start labels for us. In terms of the lights here, no green lights. I mean, really, the Vegas light for the Rams is bad because you're going up against a tough Philly defense. This is probably gonna be a low scoring game. It's probably going to be a shootout, but you still are going to see Matthew Stafford give Devontae Adams and Puka Nacua each 5-6 targets plus, and so they both are startable options at that point. And for Philly, from a secondary standpoint, it's an easier matchup for Philadelphia. I don't think they're going to be able to just run the ball the whole time and not only throw the ball 5 times a game and maybe get Devonta Smith on the field for 1 play. I'm still starting A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith. Like, I feel like you have to. Mm-hmm. Brown's going to be fine. Brown's usage in week 2 obviously was better, but his route win percentage in week 2 was much better. Devonta Smith had 10 points and again wasn't even involved for a lot of that game. But still, I think all 4 of these guys are guys you have to start. It's going to be a lower scoring game, so I guarantee there's going to be 1 or 2 of these guys here that probably have duds this week.
It'll be one of A.J. Brown or Devonta Smith, most likely, just because of that volume. Any given week, it's going to be a dud for one and a boom for the other.
But again, I mean, against the Los Angeles Rams defense that is not terrible against the run, I mean, they could end up passing the ball more. They are going to get to a point where they're going to have, like you saw, it's not like Devonta Smith. Like last year when you're looking at Devonta Smith's game log, at the end of the year even, you saw him have a ton of targets there. It was because, like I said, sometimes they do have to throw the ball. 12 targets against Pittsburgh, of all people, last year. 8 targets against Washington, 7 targets against Dallas. And so from a target volume perspective, sometimes these are the games where you do get some targets. So I don't know. You have to start them. Yeah, one of them is going to be a dud. I don't know which one it's going to be. I wouldn't be overly surprised if Devonta Smith got a bunch of targets and had 10-plus points and A.J. Brown had 1 touchdown and had 10-plus points. That would not surprise me at all. Yeah. Regardless, we'll see what this matchup brings. 2 good offenses, 4 good receivers, all starts for us this week. By the way, Puka Nacua in the S tier. Devontae Adams is in the B tier for us in this matchup. A.J. Brown will be in the B tier with Devontae Adams, and then we'll have Devonta Smith in the F tier.
So we got the Jets and Tampa going up against each other. This is an interesting matchup because obviously you're going to have a red matchup for both Mike Evans and Emeka Egbuka, but you have to start both of them. We have both of them in the C tier here. It's basically just a question of like, who's Sauce Gardner going to line up against? And I do think he's probably going to be on Mike Evans for most of the day. That's just my gut feeling because of the type of wide receiver that Mike Evans is, his archetype on the outside. I think Sauce is going to be on Evans, kind of keeping Tampa from having like that big play upside opportunity guy like Evans who can just single-handedly wreck a game. Egbuka could have another touchdown on the day. He could have 8 targets. And Egbuka is not the game record that Mike Evans is, not yet. So that's just what I expect, but we are going to have both of them in the C tier because Mike Evans through the first 2 weeks has out-targeted Emeka Egbuka.
Yeah.
He just has not gotten the touchdown.
Correct.
So we're still listing both of these guys as must-starts. I think both of them are going to be fine. Garrett Wilson is the only must-start for the Jets. Outside of that, you can't start a single receiving asset for the Jets, not this week, not next week, not ever for the rest of the season. Garrett Wilson in the C tier with Evans and Egbuka. It's 3 C tier guys in this matchup for the Jets and Tampa, where we feel pretty decent about every single one of them, honestly.
And again, our rest of season rankings and our weekly rankings change throughout the week as we get new injury updates and things like that. So if you want to just go ahead and track them on the site as we update them live in real time every single day, you can go on the link below, create a free account with code DOMAIN, and then you can access our rankings. You can also plug your team into the My Teams page for free. See where you're at ranked in your league according to our rankings, expert rankings, other guys as well. And so you can have both those tools for free just to kind of monitor throughout your fantasy football season. We have those for you on the site. Again, create a free account with code DOMAIN, and you'll get all that. Let's go to Indy, Tennessee. The Colts might end up being 3-0 after this week.
They always find a way to make it really close with Tennessee. So we'll see.
Didn't last year we kill Tennessee?
We always kill them at home. It's always close when we're away.
Are we playing at Tennessee?
Did we kill? Yeah, we're playing at Tennessee.
I thought we killed them in Tennessee last year too.
Did we?
I feel like Tennessee's not been competitive with us recently. Tennessee sucks.
We'll find a way to choke at some point.
Yeah, we will. So here's the deal with this one. It's a tough matchup. Tennessee's secondary is good. It just is. I think Pittman is going to be a meh this week. I think Josh Downs is going to be a meh this week. Now, we've got Pittman in the H tier, Josh Downs in the I tier. And I want to compare the wide receiver twos in this matchup. It's a better matchup for Tennessee in the sense that the Colts secondary is butter right now and also just banged up. Just straight up like they don't have anybody. Calvin Ridley's a start for us this week for that reason, even though he's been largely disappointing. The reason Alec Iomanner is going to be a sit for me this week is while you have seen him get 7 and 6 targets in his first couple games, you're looking at the receptions there. He only caught 2 of his 7 targets in week 1. He caught 4 of his 6 targets in week 2, but he had a touchdown. My thing with this is the reason that Josh Downs is a meh and Alec Iomanner is a sit is because Josh Downs, in my opinion, is getting a lot more catchable targets than Alec Iomanner. And so because of that, I think there's a lot more variance in the range of outcomes for Iomanner if you're starting him. And so realistically, I'm not quite yet comfortable starting him. I need to see him have another probably 10-point game, and then I'll be like, okay, yeah, maybe he's a meh. He was one of the top waiver options from last week, and I definitely understand if you're tempted to start him. In my opinion, I'm not quite there yet. But we'll see. The only must-start wide receiver in this game is Calvin Ridley. We've got, again, Pittman in the H tier, Downs in the I tier, Pierce in the J tier, and then on the Tennessee side of the ball, Calvin Ridley will go in the F tier, and we'll put Alec Iomanner in the same tier as Downs in the I tier for this week. Again, what should be a little bit of an ugly matchup, but Calvin Ridley, Michael Pittman probably going to produce in this matchup.
So Vegas and Washington going to be interesting this week, mainly on the Washington side because Daniels is going to be out of this game. So we are, in terms of the tiers, we're going to have to bring Terry and Debo both down at 1 because Terry has not been producing. Debo has, but Debo schematically at least is the number 2 there. I'm not going to lie. I think Terry's floor is lower than Debo's is in this matchup, even though we have him a tier above Debo Samuel. But again, schematically with Terry being the 1, you have to give him the nod. So we are going to list Terry and Debo both as risky starts this week. I mean, Terry, because he's a 1, you kind of just have to flex him. And Debo, with him producing, you kind of just have to flex him. So with Daniels being out, Marcus Mariota at the helm, just cross your fingers, hope Mariota can get the ball to Terry, and cross your fingers and hope that they just give handoffs to Debo Samuel on easy targets across the middle of the field in the short to intermediate game for him to continue to produce and have yak ability. So we'll have them both listed as starts in the green here. Tough matchup against Vegas, but again, starts until proven not, I guess. Jacoby Myers is going to be in the D tier with Terry McLaurin. He's had 2 solid games to start the season. He salvaged his day with 12 points despite Geno throwing 3 picks against the Chargers, 17 and 12 points respectively in the first 2 weeks of the season, 10 and 12 targets. I mean, that is just phenomenal. You factor in a touchdown for any one of these games, and he finishes as one of the top wide receivers on the week. So I think Jacoby Myers is effectively a must flex, must start every single week from here on out. I think he'll have a fine day against Washington. And then Trey Tucker, anyone past Jacoby Myers at the wide receiver position is a sit at the moment. You got Trey Tucker there. You have Dante Thornton there, who's getting a lot of snap share opportunity, but not a lot of target volume. And Jack Bech is a total non-factor. So, again, Myers, we feel pretty good about this week.
The Denver-Los Angeles Chargers game is going to be very interesting this week. Obviously, Troy Franklin was one of the...
First, who knew? Who would have guessed that you'd have 2 greens and a meh for the Chargers at the wide receiver position? That's unreal. Unreal.
I'm telling you, I've never, ever seen anything like the Greg Roman switch up. Never. Like, you have an offensive coordinator with a decade of data on him.
Yes.
And he completely
flips it.
I swear it's like I don't know. It's like when Patrick got smart on SpongeBob. Like, that's what this is like. So,
yes,
and he starts, like, gets all intelligent.
Oh,
like, that's what this is. And so, losing me my matchup with Amari and Hampton, but with Denver, we'll start there.
Yeah.
Decent matchups for both of these guys. I do think, Los Angeles has a tough defense. Obviously, Denver has a tough defense, but in terms of their secondaries, it's fine. Sutton's going to be a must start in the D tier, as well as Ladd McConkey being a must start in the D tier as well. Both of these guys, Sutton had a disappointing week last week after a good week in week 1. Ladd has gotten outproduced by Keenan Allen and Quentin Johnson, I think, each of the first 2 weeks. And Ladd's not been bad, and he feels like he's been the most involved there, but he just doesn't have any touchdowns. And so the one thing with Ladd that you could point to, he did snap shares went down a little bit in week 2, and I'm not super concerned.
It's just bizarre.
Targets got cut in half. Look, when he scores a touchdown, he's obviously going to be the guy, but I will say this. This is for different reasons, but it is still why we're a little bit concerned about Ladd coming into this year. I didn't see this happening. I didn't see multiple receivers being productive there. No. But Ladd having these 10 to 13-point weeks
is why we were iffy about him.
That's really what Ladd is. Like, he's not a super high touchdown upside guy. He's not a red zone guy.
The way that he ended up being iffy is not the way that I expected.
Not at all what we said.
Not the other wide receivers out producing him. It was 100%
and the most hilarious part about it is on the LA side of the ball. The wide receiver 2 that's being drafted for LA was Trey Harris, who we were like, Trey Harris is irrelevant. And we were right, but we were wrong because we were like, no wide receiver 2 there can be irrelevant. Well, that's not true.
False.
Clearly they can now. Again, I have no clue what happened with Greg Roman. It's been baffling to watch and also very infuriating. But finishing Denver, Troy Franklin, we're going to have in the I tier. I'm going to have him as a meh this week. I think I'm fine plugging him in the lineups this week if you want to ride the hot streak coming off of last week. But the Chargers secondary is not the Colts secondary, by the way. Mims in the K tier is a sit. And then on the LA side of the ball, Ladd McConkey is again in the D tier with Courtland Sutton. Keenan Allen must start here. He's going to be a must start here for a while, I think. G tier, and then Quentin Johnson's an iffy guy. He's a meh guy. G tier. I'm going to be deciding between QJ and Michael Pittman this week. We have QJ ranked a tier higher. That might end up being my decision, but at the same time, QJ is a little bit more big play dependent, a little bit more boom or bust. Whereas Keenan Allen, what you've seen so far throughout the season, 10 targets and 7 targets. He's had 5+ receptions in each of his games. He's had a touchdown in each of his games, 19 and 17 points. He's wide receiver 12 right now. Here's the thing. Keenan Allen's not going to continue this pace. And so I think people wanted him higher on our rest of season rankings, which I guess I understand if you're really, really reacting to just the first tier.
We had him
he's only playing 50% of snaps. Like, I mean, for reference, in the year in 2023, where it was his last very good year with Justin Herbert, for reference, he was playing 90% of snaps there plus. And so with Keenan, I mean, he is a must start. He's not like a B tier guy though. So let's slow our roll a little bit. But G tier for Keenan Allen and Quentin Johnson in the same tier, but definitely feel more comfortable starting Keenan Allen. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and tell the video editors if we can move Keenan Allen up from the G tier to the F tier, that is probably more indicative of where I would rank Keenan Allen now and also rest this season.
So looking at New Orleans and Seattle, you got the 2 number ones for the respective offenses, Olave in the G tier and JSN in the B tier. Olave, honestly, his target volume has been phenomenal. And this is just going to be more of a neutral matchup against Seattle, where against Seattle kind of kept DK Metcalf at bay and the whole passing attack for Pittsburgh at bay in week 2. So we're a little more iffy about Olave this week. But again, that volume is going to remain consistent. 13 and 10 targets in the first 2 weeks of the season. He's essentially Jacoby Myers with a less friendly matchup, honestly. So I think he's going to be fine, though. I'm definitely starting him this week as the top option there for Spencer Rattler, who's chucking the frick out of the ball right now because they're constantly down. Rashid Shaheed and Cooper Kupp, respectively, are going to be in the I tier. Both of them. Bofa, they're both the number 2s there. And Cooper Kupp actually had a good amount of production, a surprising amount of production, 16 points on like 9 targets. Like, where did that come from? We haven't seen that in a while. But do we expect that to continue long term? I don't really know. I wouldn't bet on it. But in a matchup against New Orleans, I think we're going to list him as a meh. If you want to flex Cooper Kupp, we're totally cool with that this week in a friendly matchup. And then Rashid Shaheed has, again, kind of just been a beneficiary of passing volume where New Orleans is constantly down. If he gets a touchdown, 15 points, 9 targets against Arizona. Week 1 ended up with 9 points. So if you want to flex him, similar to Cooper Kupp, it's like, yeah, he's the number 2 in an offense that you're like, oh, I don't really trust anyone past the number 1 option there. But this week, it's just kind of a different story where it's going to be okay if you have to flex one of those guys and you're suffering from injuries or something like that. But anyone beyond that, we're not even looking at, not really ranking. Torrey Horton, third option for Seattle, K tier. He's nothing.
All right, the Dallas-Chicago matchup is interesting because obviously you have CeeDee Lamb in the S tier as a must-start this week, and you have Rome Odunze in the C tier as a must-start. In terms of the matchups, a better matchup for Chicago. Dallas allows a lot more points than Chicago does. Actually, a tough matchup for Dallas and a good matchup for Chicago in terms of the opposing defenses here. And so for this reason, I'm going to have CeeDee Lamb in the S tier. I'm going to have George Pickens in the F tier this week. And the other guys in the F tier here are Devonta Smith. You've got Calvin Ridley. You've got Tyreek Hill. They've all been starts. I'm going to say start George Pickens this week, but I am going to caution you because I really did start. I had him as a meh at first. And the reason I did is because it is a tough matchup. Chicago's done very well against wide receiver 2s. My gut is screaming at me. George Pickens is a meh for me this week. J-Mo really only salvaged his day there last week because he had 2 huge plays. Outside of that, I mean, the Bears have been very good against wide receiver 2s. And so I'm going to say Pickens has a little bit of a tough day. I think he's a shaky start this week. But of course, most of you guys with your teams now, you have to start George Pickens, and I totally understand that. But I need to highlight that this is a very tough matchup for George Pickens and one that makes me a little bit apprehensive to throw him in my fantasy football lineups. Chicago, on the other hand, Rome Odunze in the C tier, he's moving on up. I honestly, the B tier guys, A.J. Brown, the B tier guys, Nico Collins, Drake London, he's going to be in that tier next week, in my opinion. Like, he's just the truth. He's the absolute truth. It's a great matchup for him. He's going to have 20 points again this week, and I'm going to be so excited about it.
Yes.
DJ Moore in the G tier, so a tier below George Pickens, and he is going to be a meh for us as well this week. It's a better matchup for DJ Moore. The problem with DJ Moore is if you've been putting him in your lineups, he's not been productive. Not enough, at least. 8 and 9 points in the first couple weeks. The snap share is still great. He's still getting 5 to 6 targets a game. Realistically, honestly, I think DJ Moore could be in the F tier with George Pickens, and I kind of make the same argument. Like, I'm fine starting DJ Moore this week, knowing that it's a shaky start because of what he's seen so far. I honestly, like, this is a good matchup for DJ Moore, and so I would not be surprised if DJ Moore ended up producing here. So we have these guys flipped. I would honestly rank them in the same tier. One
important thing to note, though, is Jalen Johnson is out for a while, so that's like Chicago's best corner. And
that you are right about that.
Changes everything.
Okay, Pickens is a start. I flip-flopping. I forgot about that. Yes, that's a great point. So Pickens is a start for us. You know what? In this matchup, I think I'm gonna end up just going 4 starts here. Are you fine starting DJ Moore?
I'm a lot more iffy about DJ Moore than Pickens personally.
But the Dallas matchup's good for the
it is good for them, and Neighbors and Wandell both balled out last week against Dallas.
I'm going to say start for all 4 of these guys.
That's fair.
I'm going to say start for all 4 of them. Yeah. I feel good about this game, and again, the Vegas lights are green and yellow, but the green light for Vegas is Chicago. Again, I think Chicago is probably the one where you could end up having a wide receiver 2 produce there this week. So I'll go 4 starts for Dallas-Chicago game this week.
Arizona and San Fran, we got Marv in the D tier. Had to move him down this week because it's a tough matchup against San Fran. But again, beyond him, no one else is really startable in Arizona at the wide receiver position. Michael Wilson salvaged his day last week with a touchdown, but you're not starting him comfortably. We don't really even have him ranked. Ricky Pearsall, on the flip side, is listed as a wide receiver 1 for San Fran, though he was outproduced by Juwan Jennings by quite a bit last week and out-targeted as well. Pearsall with 6 targets against New Orleans, and Jennings had 10 targets with that touchdown, ended up with 19 points to Pearsall's 9. Pearsall starting the season with 14 and 9 points. I do think his floor is a little bit higher than what Jennings has showcased pretty much throughout his entire career in San Fran, which is why I'm going to list Pearsall as a start this week with the volume that Mac Jones is providing. He threw the ball 39 times. You saw this actually. This is a trend for Mac Jones. You saw this in Jacksonville last season as well. He throws the crap out of the ball. And I think you're going to see the same thing in a matchup against Arizona this week. You'll probably see 35-plus pass attempts from him. And I think that bodes well for both Jennings and Pearsall. We have Jennings and Pearsall in the same tier here this week, which I think is very merited. My gut says I'm just more comfortable with Pearsall with that floor, just being a little bit higher and Jennings' floor being a lot lower. We'll go meh with Jennings this week. If you want to flex him, though, and are comfortable with it against Arizona, honestly, that would be the matchup that you would want to flex him. So,
all right, Kansas City and the New York Giants here. This one's interesting. Let's start with Xavier Worthy. He's going to be the main question here. If Xavier Worthy does play, I would probably say he is an H-tier wide receiver with Hollywood Brown. Maybe G tier. I would probably say H tier. I'm going to put him as shaky if he plays. Just first week coming off injury, has a fully torn labrum. You can play through it. I've learned that. I've done a lot of research on torn labrums now because of Xavier Worthy. And if he starts, he's a shaky start for this week because of the injury. Marquise Brown, kind of the same thing. He got hobbled in last week's game, and if Worthy plays, he might not get the target volume we wanted him to see. And so he's going to be in the H tier as well. Both those guys we think about the same of this week, at least in his first week back from injury. Tyquan Thornton's a sit for us in the J tier. It's a decent matchup for Kansas City, but again, like the wide receiver situation there is just ugly. And then on the New York side of the ball, tough matchup. Malik Neighbors going to be a start. Wandale's going to be a meh. If anything, this is the game where Russ Wilson comes back down to earth and Wan'Dale Robinson comes back down to earth. And so I'm going to say Wandale's shaky for this week. Obviously, you can't ignore the target volume from the first couple of weeks with Wan'Dale Robinson. 8 and 10 targets in the first couple games and 11 and 28 points. And I get why people might be tempted to, must start Wan'Dale Robinson. We'll have him in the H tier this week as a tough matchup against a good Kansas City Chiefs team. And, realistically, I think we need to temper our expectations with Wan'Dale just a little bit, even though he's had a strong start to this season.
Then the last matchup of the week, Detroit and Baltimore. Amon-Ra and Flowers, both unquestioned starts. Amon-Ra will have in the A tier after having a phenomenal game against Chicago. This is looking to be a friendly matchup against Baltimore as well. It's allowed a good amount of production to receivers. Zay Flowers in the D tier here. Again, he just doesn't have the upside that a lot of the guys in the tiers above him have. Going up against Detroit, we still expect him to be totally fine. I mean, he had a good week following up his, I think, what was it, like 25-plus point game in week 1. He scored 14 points against Cleveland. So that was a pretty pass-happy game as well where Derrick Henry didn't do anything. So where we expect Derrick Henry to get more involved, maybe Zay Flowers will have maybe more of a pedestrian performance this week, but again, expect it to be high scoring. I think he's going to be fine. And then Jamison Williams, we will have listed as a start in the F tier. Again, multiple receivers have been very productive against Baltimore's defense to date so far this season, and historically dating back to 2024. I think he has some big play upside. Again, you know what Jamo's floor is. Don't even have to mention that. His upside is week winning every single week. Rashad Bateman, we will have as... honestly, we're going to have him as a sit this week in the J tier.
It's a great matchup for Bateman.
Bateman is literally like... DeAndre Hopkins and Devontae Walker have been outproducing him. Like you may as well.
He's only had 4 targets in his first 2 games.
You may as well put them in the meh if you want to either, which makes me just put all of them as sits. Like I don't trust any of them past Zay Flowers. So you're right. One of them will have a really good.
One of the receivers is going to have a good.
But
game.
It's literally a 30% chance
right.
on who you're starting between Bateman, Hopkins, and Tez Walker, who had 2 touchdowns.
Yeah,
last week.
Yeah, right. Devontae Walker had 16 points last week on literally 2 targets, 2 receptions, and 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, it's crazy. So
all right, there you go. Those are the running back matchup start sits for this week. Again, do us a favor. real quick, it helps us support the channel, helps us put out videos. Drop a like on the video, help it reach more people, and make sure you're subscribed as well if you play fantasy football. We're going to have this for you every single week so you can go through the entire fantasy football season confident in your decisions and you can win your league. Again, we can have our updated weekly rankings for you as we learn more about injuries through the week over on the site. You can go to the link, you can sign up, make a free account with code domain, costs nothing. You can keep track of the weekly rankings and you can make sure that you have the most up-to-date information to win your fantasy matchup this week. We appreciate you guys. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you later.